And the total amount we spent for the entire month of August living full-time in our RV is... Every month, I like to make a video going over all of our expenses for the entire month because when we started looking into living in an RV full time, we didn't have a great idea of how much anything costs. People would go over like a monthly expense report for their most expensive month, but not anywhere else. So my goal is to make one of these pretty much every single month so you have a better idea of how much living in an RV full time actually costs and if it's something you may be interested in. But one caveat for the month of August is that we did actually travel for 2 weeks by plane, so those expenses aren't going to be included in this video because we weren't living in the RV, so those aren't like necessary expenses you have for RV living. And without any more delay, let's get right into how much campsites cost for the whole month of August. In total, we spent $633 in the month of August on campsites only. And this may seem low to you, but like I said earlier, we were traveling for 2 weeks, so this is really only like two and a half weeks worth of campsites. Typically, we're between $1,000 and $1,200 a month for campsites. However, we were able to get a slightly cheaper campsite because we were willing to stay another 5-10 minutes outside of the park, which saved us like $15 to $20 a night, so definitely worth it if it's something you're considering doing is visiting Yellowstone. Otherwise, we just stayed at a lot of harvest hosts for that next week and a half, and a family friend who graciously let us stay on their land for a couple of days. So that's another thing. If you are traveling, look to family and friends, and you may be able to get a free stay in their yard or even at their house if they're feeling extra generous. The next category is groceries, where we spent $522.46 for the whole month of August. And for this category, I actually did include the cost of when we were traveling, groceries like that, because I figured it's a rough estimate and I'll give a better idea for how much you can buy groceries for just 2 people while traveling. And this is probably the category that fluctuates the most month to month because some areas are really expensive for groceries, like in Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, where our average grocery bill was like an extra $50 to $100 sometimes every 2 weeks. But for the last week or so of this month, we were in Billings and Bozeman, Montana, which are pretty big cities compared to where we have been staying. And the grocery prices definitely reflected this as we were able to save a lot of money as they had Walmart and other options, so prices were very low compared to where it was in Yellowstone, where it was very high. The next category is how much we spent on gas and fuel for the RV and the car, and this also includes propane, where we spent $624.22 total for all of this for the whole month of August. And this expense, we also learned, does fluctuate a lot, but you can control this pretty well depending on how much you want to travel every single month. For example, that first month where we traveled almost every single day, it seemed like for a whole month, our gas bill was almost $1,500, but the past 2 months we were able to keep this around $500 to $700 because we were parked somewhere for like a week at a time. And gas for your car, yes, gas prices can be expensive. However, the RV is where you spend all of your money because it gets like 5 miles per gallon and has like a 70-gallon gas tank. So when we drive this for 8-10 hours a week, it costs us easily $200 to $300 a week to drive the RV alone. And just a quick tip on fueling with your RV at gas stations: if you find truck stops, they are much easier to maneuver and typically have a lower gas price by a couple cents, which doesn't make a whole big of a difference when you're driving a car because you're only getting like 5-10 gallons. But when you're getting 50 to 60 gallons for every fill up, that extra 10 to 15 cents a gallon definitely adds up over time. The next category we're going to be going over is always the scariest for me because this price can just be really low every month and then just skyrocket out of nowhere. And this was kind of one of those months where we had a little bit of catastrophe, which is the RV maintenance. In the previous 2 months, we were able to keep this between $100 to $200, I think, on the high end, which is pretty good. I think we had to buy a spare tire or something like that. But this month, we spent $404.99 on RV maintenance and repairs alone. However, we know this price can be much worse, but luckily I'm able to do some of the work myself, which saves us a ton of money and time if we were to pay someone else to do it, which is nice. And we also had a huge issue where the back tire on the passenger side of the RV, that brake caliper system was leaking braking fluid, so the brakes weren't working super well on the RV, so we kind of had to pull into a camping world. I have a whole video going over the whole thing, I'll link here, but that cost us about $150 to $200 to fix that alone, and that was with me doing all of the labor. If we had to pay people to do the tire and the labor for the brakes, I could see this easily costing an extra $500 this month, so thankful that it was minimized to $400. The next category is one I would like to personally pat ourselves on the back a little bit, is fun things in the area, which we learned from our first month. You can easily spend $1,000 a month, and yes, I said that correctly, $1,000 a month we spent in the first month. And we thought we were almost like saving money by doing these fun things or by not doing the more expensive ones. But when you do a little fun thing that costs $10 to $30 a person, like a couple times a week for 4 or 5 weeks, that money adds up pretty fast, we learned, which is probably one of our bigger mistakes with our financial movements while RVing, but overall not terrible, and you live and you learn. So this month for fun things, we spent $183.64, which, like I said, pretty good. However, we were staying in Yellowstone for a while, and most of the things to do in Yellowstone is drive around, hike, do tourist things like that about the national parks. So thankfully, there weren't a lot of temptations to go like zip lining or bungee jumping or I don't know, other more intense things that you could do while you're traveling. But we still like to enjoy doing fun things. We went to a rodeo, which was amazing in Cody. Definitely recommend it if you're going to Cody. And we also occasionally will go to like a bar. Haley can't have gluten, so we found a cider bar, which we've never really been to before. So we got a little tasting. Very fun. So things like that we're definitely willing to do a few times a month, just not a couple times a week. There's a balance here. Next category kind of goes along with fun things, which is eating out. Also, we have really reined this in. For the whole month of August, we only spent $76.67 while eating out. But one caveat to this is it was Haley's birthday in the month of August, so happy birthday, Haley. And as a birthday gift from some of her friends and family, they did buy us dinner, which is very nice and we're very grateful for it. But even without those birthday gifts, we do a pretty good job with not eating out and can usually keep this under $200 easily. I try to keep it more under $100 because I'm a little more stingy with the budget, but same thing as the fun things category. Sometimes there's a really cool restaurant that's like a once in a lifetime meal they serve, and so you just have to try it. The second to last category is subscriptions that we have just with RV living. This is things like our RV insurance, driving insurance, health insurance, Starlink Wi-Fi, which is pretty expensive. I have a couple of videos on that though that I'll link below and here. And if you want to get a free month of Starlink when you sign up, use the link below. You'll get a free month. It'll be amazing. Save you about $150 a month. And how much we spend on subscriptions really doesn't change throughout the month. So for the month of August, same as June and July, which is $467.29. And the last category that we're going to go over before we go through the total amount that we have spent for the month of August is going to be miscellaneous things and items or expenses. This can be anything from some tool we need on Amazon to help like hang a picture or something in the RV. I know that's really random, but there's nowhere else to really include that expense. Or also we went flying, and so we had to check a bag, so I included that expense here. A bunch of just little things that kind of add up. We also include our donations in this category. And for the month of August, this totaled to be $288.11, which is pretty good. I still think we can get this down a little lower to about $200 a month pretty easily and just have a little bit of buffer room if something comes up. But overall, pretty happy with the miscellaneous items spent. And when you take all of the expenses from all of the categories, the grand total for all of our expenses for traveling full-time in an RV for the whole month of August is $3,197.38. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with that. This is the lowest month we've had. However, like I've said multiple times, we were traveling for 2 full weeks to see family, which definitely cut down on costs, but I don't think it actually cut down on that much of a cost, to be honest with you. Maybe $500 or $600 for those 2 weeks for campsites and for gas. But we've learned that the campsites actually don't have to be that expensive if you're not staying in really big places. Yellowstone and Grand Tetons were definitely our most expensive campsites. I think the ones in Yellowstone were about $50 or $60 a night with hookups, and in Grand Tetons it was almost $85 or $90 without hookups. But when we stayed at Custer State Park back in South Dakota for a week, our average campsite price was like $30, so about half the price as these big national parks. If you thought this video was helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe, help support the channel so we can keep making more videos like this to give you a little more information into the life of full-time RV living. And if you have any tips on how we can save money ourselves, please let us know in the comments and we'll definitely try them out and test them out next month.